Hawaii, water, custodianship, and the system memory test. Wales opens as a paradox. The Gulf opens as a warning. Hawaii opens as something else entirely. Because here the water story isn't just climate, it's governance, it's infrastructure, it's capital, and it's the oldest kind of system on Earth, custodianship. This isn't a travel episode. This is a system test. DPI Episode 8, Hawaii, water, custodianship, and the system memory test. Hawaii looks like abundance. An island chain in the middle of the Pacific surrounded by water, shaped by rain. But the implementation era doesn't care what a place looks like. It cares what the system can hold when conditions change. And Hawaii is a rare place where the micro and macro layers collide with unusual clarity. The macro layer is immense. Federal authority, military infrastructure, global tourism, capital that arrives fast and leaves faster. The micro layer is older than the state. Watersheds, streams, aquifers, local communities living inside the limits of place, and in the middle of it all is the public trust question. Who controls water? Who benefits? And who pays when the system fails? In Hawaii, water isn't merely a resource, it's legitimacy. Now add time. In the old world, the story was seasonal. In the implementation era, the story is volatility. Dry periods stretch, rain arrives in harder bursts, fire risk rises, and the system becomes less predictable. That shift is not abstract. It changes recharge, it changes stream flow, it changes how much an aquifer can safely supply before the ocean starts to push back. And it changes politics. Because when conditions tighten, every allocation decision becomes a governance decision. And every governance decision becomes a stress test of trust. Hawaii has a uniquely explicit water governance structure, including the requirement to protect public trust uses and to consider in-stream flows and native Hawaiian rights. This matters because it forces the system to make its values visible. But visibility isn't the same as implementation. Implementation is what happens in the catchment, in the stream, in the well field, and in the community, over time. And that is where the veritas question becomes binary. Do outcomes converge with commitments, or do they diverge? Hawaii also exposes another reality of modern governance. Infrastructure can become a governance event, not in theory, in practice. When water quality becomes contested, when an aquifer becomes threatened, the system doesn't just face an engineering challenge. It faces a credibility challenge. And credibility is not a narrative. It is evidence sustained across time. This is why Hawaii is such an important bridge episode on the way to Japan. Because it highlights something macro systems routinely fail to encode long-horizon system memory. In many places, institutions operate on election cycles, budget cycles, and quarterly reporting. But ecosystems do not, and neither do the people who have lived inside a place's limits for centuries. In Hawaii, persistent micro-governance, custodial practice, place-based responsibility, long-horizon knowledge still exists as a living operating system, not as a symbol, as a real stabilizing mechanism. The point is not romanticism. The point is systems theory. Some microsystems retain time depth that macrosystems lose. That makes them strategically important in the implementation era, not because they are nice to include, because they preserve feedback. And feedback is what prevents drift. Now look at what happens when multiple pressures stack. Environmental volatility changes the timing of water. Infrastructure concentrates risk. Governance moves more slowly than conditions. narratives polarize, and capital responds early, sometimes earlier than institutions admit. You don't need to predict outcomes to see the pattern. You only need to watch for alignment. When these signals converge, the system's intervention window narrows, not because collapse is inevitable, but because delay compounds cost and reduces options. So Hawaii becomes a lab, not only for water management, but for how modern governance engages with time. Because this is the real question beneath the episode. Can a macro system learn fast enough to respect what the microsystem already knows? And can we build digital public infrastructure that makes that learning measurable? Not annually, not after failure, in time. Veritas synthesis for Hawaii. This system shows convergence. The dominant pressure is the coupling of water volatility with allocation tension inside a complex authority landscape. The stabilizing factor is persistent microgovernance, system memory that remains intact even when institutions drift. This is not prediction. This is early warning logic. Hawaii is not just on the way to Japan. It is the bridge that lets us see the implementation era clearly. Macro intent, micro reality, and time deciding whether trust holds.